Everybody, 1, 2, 3, show's going. My name is Doug, and I want to welcome everybody to tonight's event. What is music as therapy about? And without further ado, I want to introduce one of the greatest musicians of our time, 4-time Grammy-nominated artist, chart-topping, jazz-dominating the charts artist through the 90s, and into with Blue Note Records, Arista, Capitol Records, my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Stanley Jordan.
Thank you very much. So happy to be doing this event with you, Hope.
Stanley, it was absolutely beautiful. And this is a dream come true for both of us. So, getting to share tonight with all of you that are in the Zoom room with us and all of you that are joining us out on Facebook live stream, YouTube live stream, we are so grateful to have you. This is a couple decades culmination. Stanley and I have, like many of you out there, deeply shared soul journeys about music in our lives and its power to help us, its power to heal us, its power even in treatment. And Stanley and I are going to be sharing that with you tonight. This is our kickoff event, right, Stanley? It's a big kickoff for us.
Yes, it's a big kick.
And this kickoff is, go ahead.
No, it's a
This
huge kick.
kickoff is a live stream. And it is, and we're
Yeah.
having some delayed audio, so I'll
Okay.
just go ahead and finish the intro and go into what we're going to expect tonight.
Okay. By the way, Hope,
So
for your Zoom, it might
this
be
live
better.
kickoff is about Stanley and I are.
Hold on, I lost you for a sec. Say that again, please. I think we got a little bit of a Zoom freeze going on. I think if you turn on your original sound, change that, it might be better off overall.
Okay, I can do that. Hold on, everybody.
So we're working with the situation as it is, and people are using the internet more often to connect. And so one thing that goes along with that is all of the sort of technical hurdles we, of course, need to deal with. But the benefit of it is that you and I have been talking about working together for so long, and one of the main drawbacks has been just the physical distance. And now it's not such a big deal because people are doing so many things remotely now.
That's correct, and that's enabling us to finally work together in the way we've always dreamed and envisioned. So Stanley has graciously joined the Center for Music Therapy's team as a resident guest artist, and we are going to be doing career music therapy and related fields workshops in April, May, and June, and that will be in 3 different modules. So you'll hear us kicking this event off tonight, letting you know our own journeys, and then going into career, more professional journeys. Not many of you would even know that Stanley actually has already finished a year in his degree in music therapy on top of all those chart smashing, amazing world tours he's been doing his whole career. Awards, honors galore, and is truly a world-renowned virtuoso artist. So it's really exciting. So without further ado, let me just start to explain a little bit of contextualizing when we talk about music as therapy. We're going to talk about 3 words. One is when we're talking about an intent to help people through music. Another one, to really intentionally heal people through music. And another clarification is when you're really intentionally doing treatment. And if you think of them in a linear way, you know that when we're having you consider who you are and choices that you're making as a person drawn to music and how you want to use that power of music from our lives and as our inheritance as human beings to bring that into the world to make a great impact. Think about if you want to be more in that in the healing or more in the treatment, as you start about investments you're making to support your personal journey in a career, a sustainable career. All right, so just to contextualize that, we'll be talking in that way, but think about kind of in this way as I laid it out. Really, when you're talking about the continuum of music as therapy, it's a constant flowing circle, and people are going to come into your life, and because we're always helping, healing, and treating all at the same time, or sometimes a little bit more towards helping, sometimes more in the healing arts, and sometimes in hardcore medical intensive acute care treatment. So, with that, I am going to ask you, those of you who are listening, to think about your own story, personal journey with Music Fit. And with those of you here tonight are considering possibly a career in a related field in music as therapy or in music therapy, I want you to be thinking about your own stories and what's brought you here tonight. As we go ahead and share our story, Stanley's going to take over now. And Stanley's going to share for about the next 15 minutes till about 7 o'clock. Stanley's going to share his personal journey through music and with music in music as therapy. Stanley?
Okay, so one of the first memories that I have with this whole thing is this whole idea of music, the whole idea of the healing power of music. I didn't know anything about music therapy at the time, but when I was in high school, I had a day scheduled to get together with a friend of mine who was a pianist. And I was going to go to her house and we were just going to play music. Said, look, I'm not feeling so well today. And she said, oh, that's okay. We don't have to do this. And I said, but I actually still don't mind getting together if that's okay with you, because I figure I might as well do something fun. Since I'm not feeling good, I might as well at least do something that I enjoy. Maybe, that'll at least take my mind off. But she said, sure, come on over. So I went there, and I think we played for like 6 hours. We just went on and on and on and played so much music that day. And it was amazing because I could feel by the end of the day that one thing I had was working its way through my system. I could really process this illness through my system. Normally you kind of have a feel of when you start to not feel so good, you kind of have a feeling this is going to be a day or two. Oh, this is going to be a little longer or whatever. It amazed me at how quickly, by the end of the day, I was already well on my way to being healed. So I thought, well, that was interesting. I didn't know you could do that with music. Now, the funny thing is, still, I didn't know anything about music healing or music therapy or any of that. Just had this feeling that I understood that music could help people, and I had a long-standing interest in health and in healing and in learning about the brain. How does the brain work? Is there a way that we can use music to make the brain work better? Use music just in general to help our health, And so I was kind of intrigued by these questions, and I figured, well, it was something new that maybe no one's doing this yet, and, maybe it's worth exploring. So now we fast forward to, I'm already a professional musician. I think I'm somewhere in my early 30s, and I was about to do an outdoor concert. And I just had this feeling to do something really and just walk out into the audience right before a show, which is I just never do that. But I was just, this feeling just told me to just walk out there. And so I did. I just walked out there, and I was immediately approached by this woman down in Poland. And she said, hi, Stanley, have you ever heard of music therapy? And then I knew, okay, now I know why I walked out here. And I said, well, no, I have not heard of it, but I'd love to learn more. And she said, well, I'm a music therapist. And I realized there even was such a profession. And she said, I'd love to tell you about it, and I'd love to send you some materials. I said, sure, absolutely. So she sent me this huge stack of documents. And I was amazed not just by the quantity, but also by the quality. Because there was a lot of scientific rigor. There were a lot of serious peer-reviewed science studies showing the health benefits of music. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is really cool. This is something that I have to get involved in it some way or another. Then maybe a few years later, I was at the NAMM show, the big music industry trade show. And one of the mornings I saw, there's a meeting of the American Music Therapy Association. That looks interesting, kind of early, but I'll go ahead and go anyway. So I went to the meeting, and a couple of the people recognized me there, and it was really interesting to hear about things people were doing with music therapy. And so that's when I started to get plugged into the actual music therapy community in terms of the organizations and the different events. And then I started going to some of the national conferences and learning more and more and more. And then I think it was like around 99, I went to the international conference. It was hosted in Washington, all around the world with music therapy. And that's when I made the decision, okay, I have to get involved. I have to do something with this. And so things just sort of kind of progressed from there. I was living in Arizona at the time, and I found out that Arizona State had a great program. And so I enrolled in the master's program at Arizona State, studying with Barbara Crow. Barbara Crow wrote a book that I would still say, if I could only recommend one book, like your sort of desert island, music therapy book, it would be Barbara's book, Music and Soul Making, because she goes into every aspect of what people are doing in music therapy, and she uses sort of chaos theory and all the nonlinear sciences, complexity theory, as a basis for the theory of music therapy. Because music therapy, although it's studied, some of these newer sciences actually do a better job of seeing what the effects were are than the older traditional sciences. And the reason is because the more traditional sciences are very reductionistic. And that's fine if you're looking for a chemical compound. What's the active ingredient of a plant pharmaceutical, plant medicine or something, But with music, it's so integral, it's so holistic. Very often, so you can see, the group, you have the control group, but you have the group with music therapy. They did better, that's true. But what do you mean by music therapy? Because the music therapist did whatever she or he felt needed to be done at the time. So it's difficult to sort of isolate these variables, whereas the kind of more the newer science that's able to look at some of these more complex and nonlinear effects is actually more equipped to understand the action of music therapy. And then at the end of the book, Dr. Crow basically says, okay, looking forward into the 21st century, we can even go beyond this idea of music as therapy and actually use music as a kind of applied philosophy to help us understand the world. And there's extensive footnotes. I mean, this is actually nothing new. For example, when Pythagoras did the experiments with the monochord, where you take the string and divide it into certain integer ratios, and you get these harmonic intervals that sound pleasing to the ear, Pythagoras was studying this because his whole idea was that these whole number ratios, these harmonic proportions, are part of the essence of the universe. And now we know this is throughout the sciences. We know, for example, astronomers will use the word resonance to talk about the relationship between the orbits of different planets, and resonance is holding our solar system together. If you take the revolution time of the Earth and the revolution time of Mercury, you'll see that it's about 2 octaves apart. Mercury is about 2 octaves above the Earth. There are all these musical relationships, and I've had such a love of science already, and so to be able to take that and apply that to thinking of music in its connection to the natural world has been really a wonderful journey for me. And the other thing that goes along with that is I've very much been interested in the sort of mathematicalization of the structure, not the essence and the soul of the music, but just the structure of the music lends itself to a sort of a mathematical approach. And I've been intensely working on that ever since 1975. So this is something that I'm very familiar with. And so at this point, it's very easy for me to take some of these elements of science, which tends to be very quantitative, very sort of numerical, and relate that to music on many levels. So one example of this is what we call sonification. So I talked about the Mercury being 2 octaves above the Earth. I've created apps where you can listen to that, and you can listen to the sort of story of the heavens. A couple of the online performances I've done in the last few months, I've opened that door just a little bit and shown a little bit of that work. And as I move forward, I'm definitely going to be doing more of that. So that's just one element, because that's the sciences, and that's obvious because of the mathematical structure of music. But when you really look at music, and you hear Hope talking about helping, the therapeutic, side, the biomedical, and all these different aspects, that alone is really multifaceted. To give you an example, in the early 90s, or no, I think it was 2003, I did a lot of shows in the Middle East. And one of the places where I went was Beirut, and I did a session for kids with Down syndrome. Now, I knew that their parents and a lot of the media was going to be there at the session, so I didn't want to create some frame that these kids somehow had a problem or we needed to kind of cure some issue. I didn't want to go even into that direction. So my whole concept was, hey, you can use music to help you learn. And so I said, hey, we can use music to help us learn our numbers. We can use music to help us learn our directions. Music can help us to show how the plasticity of the brain can help you recover functionality after an accident or recovering after a physical trauma. It just goes on and on and on, because music touches us physically, emotionally, and mentally and spiritually. So because of the integral nature of music, that built-in integral nature of music, music already integrates the brain, it integrates the mind body, and it through that integration, it has the power to elicit healing on so many different levels. And there are a lot of things that we can look at here where music can be with existing medical approaches. Hope is one of the pioneers in biomedical music therapy. Music is completely compatible. Certainly, music in the right situation, depending on what you're dealing with, music by itself can be a primary healing modality. And certainly, even just you go to the hospital, and I've done many of these things. I played for kids with cancer in hospitals. I played in all kinds of situations where we go in, and the doctors and the staff, they're very open. We just say, hey, we want to make your kids feel better. So we just go in and we do fun stuff over the world, and it's universal. Kids respond so readily to music. So, that into some of the different approaches and some of the different elements of why I've gotten so excited. Music healing, music for wellness. And as we progress during these couple of hours, you're going to see even more about that. So I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Hope.
Thank you, Stanley. And we met in 1999 at one of the World Congresses. It was a joint conference of music therapy across the world, and our national conference. And I remember, I don't know how it was, we just struck up the greatest conversation, and that started you and I's conversations all these years. We just really both love music and the power of that, and to use that in the world to really make an incredibly deep impact to heal. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And in these discussions, many of you who are choosing the healing arts, music is a science and an art. And in medical and as therapists, it is a healing art. And we are deeply in the sciences. So amongst all that, we start with you, your own personal story, your relationship with yourself and who you are, what you want out of life. And so I'm going to start with who I am. And my journey is very natural. Just kind of to let you know, I was 11 or 12 years old when I knew I wanted to use music to help people, right? I had this vision in my head since I've been 11 or 12 of a center that we had kids dancing and we were doing art and we were singing, and there were even beds in the back so we could sleep there and live there. And the reason this is, my mother had a very difficult pregnancy. She had she had 4 children, 3 of those very difficult pregnancy, and me being the last pregnancy, She barely made it. We both barely made it. But my mom is a colorature soprano, got her undergraduate in music composition performance, truly a diva in all the ways in opera and performance. We did a lot of musical theater together, even as a child. But where the music really is in me and is still so deeply crazy in me to help and to actually treat people is because through mom's pregnancy, she really struggled to get through that pregnancy and for me to live. She sang hymns, and one of the hymns she sang was called Whispering Hope. And after I was born, I was a very sick neonatal intensive care baby. And mom told me that my cry was so weak, it was like a whisper. And she named me Hope from the song she sang me through, all the songs that she sang me through that pregnancy with her, holding on to life and feeding my spirit. And in the NICU, just feeding me, as she called me her pincushion. And even though my little cries were whispers, they grew to a strong voice. And my strong voice grew because my mom, through difficult pregnancies and a lot of other things that happened around the time of my birth, mom developed major depression. And as mom's major depression started to transform into what's called bipolar disorder, my childhood and my mother's journey with mental illness has been a lifelong journey for us. And music, no matter what, I don't know how many people listening today have had a journey with somebody that you love or yourself with some level of mental illness. One of the things that gets torn at is your relationships, and we call it these bonds. But because mom was a musician and she named me after her song, and I started singing once I could breathe and I had enough strength. I was a little child singing with mom. And when mom would start to slip away, if you've seen them kind of depression starts to them slip away where you can't connect. Mom would be up at night all night. And I remember my mom was a great pianist and organist, and she would be playing that organ. And I would sneak out and just listen in the dark to my mom play. She loved Claire de Lune. It's still one of the songs that I remember my mom very deeply. And as mom's depression evolved into bipolar and then into atypical bipolar, where she became delusional often and she became psychotic and couldn't even recognize who I am. As I grew, even in elementary school, when your life gets, when my mom, my brothers lived with my father and I lived with mom, they divorced pretty much just a few years after I was born. And my mom, living alone with her with mental illness, you have a very destabilizing factor with mental illness. We lived 16 places before I was even 15 years old. So a lot of moves. Mental illness wasn't very well understood. She was an incredible professional woman where she was on, but as soon as there was a suicide attempt, she'd either go back then and they were put in state institutions, or of course she would lose her job once she got through recovery. There was no job for her. So what I was trying to say is all that destabilizing was hard, but what mom's music, playing music, us singing in musicals, and mom, when I couldn't reach her, she didn't even know who it was, I would sing to my mother songs familiar to you. She had a song that she would sing to me, you and me against the world. Sometimes it feels like you and me against the world. When all the others turn their backs and walk away, our love is here to stay. And mom would usually come in on that stay. And even though she couldn't really tell yet who I was, she would sing along with me. And as we continued to sing, mom would start to realize I was her daughter and remember our relationship. There are just so many powerful stories, not only my story, but all across humanity's history. And I know all of you out there listening, you can think of a time when you really were alone or you needed to connect, and it was through music. Music could speak. Hans Christian Andersen, where words fail, music speaks. I was in an orphanage after one of mom's suicide attempts. I was very little. And I didn't have anybody to attach to. There was absolutely no one. There's another thing that can happen that, Stanley, you brought up, that power that even in space, music exists. And in the darkness of space, in the darkness of our worst times, music exists. So I remember I was, of course, very traumatized, separated from mom, dad, thought mom was dead, all these things that isn't very cool for kids. And I was crying myself to sleep every night. It just so happened a couple came and took me to church on a Sunday when I was in the orphanage. And of course, we were singing at church. And there is a song in the Christian faith, at least for my generation, a simple children's song, Jesus Loves Me. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Well, guess what I latched onto in my darkness? Music exists and resonance exists in space. In my internal space, I latched onto that song and I did not cry myself to sleep any other nights for that whole stay in the orphanage. I sang myself to sleep every night. And I still, when I need to soothe, right? I grab a guitar. Little ones to him belong. Oh, they are weak, God is strong. And my soul knows how to take flight and be free. And that's what led to my vision of a music therapy center and what my career path has guided me. And I'm still on. And I went into college holding through music, being in musicals, singing, performing, but that wasn't ever why I was in music. I was in music. The dark, and I've always
Hope,
had
can you just repeat that last
being a
part?
pathfinder.
Can you just
And
just repeat that last part because you cut out for a moment?
yeah. So it's never been the performance. Never performance or an grabbed me. It's always been the internal journey. Those journeys that we all know with music, that place inside that we can find ourselves, that we can find each other in the light and through the darkness. I have always been given a gift of being a pathfinder, and music is that anchor. It always helps me find my direction, my focus, my purpose, find and contextualize meaning in things that make absolutely no sense. And I stand beside people now professionally on that journey and continue to push. My whole life, it's been my purpose. But that's because it comes out of a very amazing childhood and a gift of life that my parents gave me. Because life is a gift to be received with gratitude for me, but it's also a task to be undertaken with courage. And choosing music therapy is a courageous path because you're going to stand with people in very dark places and places they don't want to go. But having music as that anchor and connector is one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced in this world. And Stanley and I both believe in this universe. It's one of the greatest powers. So that's a little bit of my story. Going through childhood, I had that vision. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't, because I moved so much in school, I was not a straight A student. Matter of fact, no guidance counselor ever put me on an academic university path. Sure, I was talented on stage, but I couldn't read music very well. I never had the support or that parental support or that stability to be a straight A student. I was your hardworking B student. But I kept telling about my dream. It wasn't until I left, I went to Ball State University, and I was a double major and a triple with a minor to figure out how to make this music as therapy thing. I had a major in music, a major in special ed, and a minor in social work when I told them what I wanted to do. But you have to get permission to be a double major. And once I won a solo in one of the biggest productions that Ball State did, and I brought down the house and I was making a big name for myself, the dean of the music school refused to continue to allow me to be a double major in special ed because he said I was wasting my talent. And I absolutely revolted against him because it's not ever what I wanted to do with my music. He knew that. The assistant dean took pity on me. He went to a conference that Stanley mentioned, Music Educators, the MENC, and he happened to see Dr. Suzanne Hanser, who is one of the leading music therapists in the world. She was speaking at that conference, and he went up to her and spoke to her about me and my dream. And she gave him all kinds of materials on this amazing field called music therapy. And he brought it literally to my dorm room. He knocked on the door and handed me all these materials. Oh my gosh, that was it. I was like, bing, there was my vehicle to live my purpose and dream. I left Ball State and I got on a Greyhound bus 3 days, 3 nights all by myself, moved to California where I found, that's where Dr. Hanser taught Conservatory of Music. Music therapy program, one of the oldest music therapy programs in the world, a small university that could give special attention to me because I still had a mentally ill mother to take care of and get through school and pay my way through school. They really believed in me. And I told them about, I wanted to found a center in music therapy. They believed in me. I came right out of that door, had a job in music therapy, did my internship. In my internship, started accepting clients, and the Center for Music Therapy was born. And here we are 31 years later, Stanley, and I'm more ridiculously passionate about this field than ever before.
And that Center for Music Therapy was
So,
a
yeah,
milestone.
that's a little bit of...
Mm-hmm. Because your Center for Music Therapy, wasn't it the first freestanding music therapy clinic?
Yeah, it was the first it still is, it's still going. So it's the first for-profit music therapy facility in the world. And therapy reimbursed starting in 1992. Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. We set a lot of the precedents in regulatory, state regulatory, helped really push national regulatory on reimbursement, which is a big deal. I think because I was a young kid who often was taking care of her mom, I learned very early finances always had to work for sustainability. So in our workshop, I talk about your journey, who you are, but I'm also very honest about finances. And we have to push financial models to support our dreams. If you're going to dedicate your life to it, you have to be able to feed yourself and take care of others. If you can't take care of yourself, you're really never going to be able to be there for others. And this is both the music industry, especially women in healthcare. This is a big deal for us. We tend to, social workers tend to make less than music therapists do after they've already spent money on masters. So we talk about a lot of these things that are very real issues. So I knew going in, I took business classes and Astra Labs at University of the Pacific. So I could develop that business model of the first for-profit. And we just always made money. We never had grants to start anything. We never had scholarships. We just made money. We grew all over the state, 21 full-time music therapists. But there is an issue, and I'm going to end on this note for all of you that are watching, all of you live streaming, parents that maybe have kids considering or careers, an undergraduate, master's, or PhD. One of the things you do need to think about is that we have a healthcare crisis, a workforce problem. Nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, even in the pandemic, everybody, we are so short on healthcare workforce, and that goes double to triple for music therapists. There have never been enough music therapists to fill the demand for music therapy in this country and across the world. This is why Stanley and I are talking together. We need allies in helping, healing, and treating people through music therapists, because if you're investing in an undergrad, master's, or PhD in music therapy, you need allies like Stanley. You need allies that are musicians, educators, because there's so much to do with music and the world needs so much care. But if there's only 8,000 music therapists right now in the United States, and we have just one diagnosis that I'm going to talk to you about tonight, just one out of the many you heard Stanley mention. 1 million people have Parkinson's. That number is going to double to triple in the next 10 to 20 years. That's just one diagnosis. How can we ever tell everybody about the powerful impact, promise them we're going to be there, if we don't make financial models work? And if we don't really fix our workforce pipeline to get more music therapists into school and into careers and staying in careers that they can afford. So I'm very passionate about it. So thanks for being here and joining me. So Stanley, we're going to transition now to talking a little bit to our participants and people on live about where do you guys, I want you out there to think about where you want to be and what you might need to do professionally to pursue a career in music therapy or music as therapy, and maybe paraprofessional arts, in kinder music, in music together, in integrative medicine, in all the ways that Stanley's going to tell more about professional careers as a touring artist. And I'm going to tell you stories about a lot of the people I collaborate with. There's nowhere I'd be where I am without video engineers, composers, all the musicians we work with, educators, other partners. I just want all of you to be imagining yourself living your best life, as Stanley and I are going to lead you through a relaxation. Stanley was here in Austin with me many years ago on a crazy world tour, and he had to do one world theater. And like most really high caliber musicians, they're touring so much, their health gets neglected. And he had a tooth that while he was here, he was gonna have to get a tooth pulled, and he didn't want to use anesthesia. So in my apartment, Stanley and I did a relaxation session where he composed his own music to producer. As we go into this career path and we talk about music and healing, most people think about how music can relax you and bring down your stress and regulate your emotions. And the live experiential, you're breathing in your body, in your own dreams and your own feelings. Stanley, are you of leading you relax as Stanley and as
Your connection is cutting out now. I think we need to just give it again because your image is frozen. So I'm just gonna keep playing for a while till we get our connection working again. Feel your feet connecting the floor beneath you, and your body connecting to the chair and floor beneath you. As you take another deep breath, breathing in and blowing out. Your body sinking to the chair, the floor beneath you. Feeling one, connecting with your body. Each breath, breathing in and blowing out. Now
as you feel the music flowing around you, let the music flow from your head, down across your neck, down your shoulders and arms, down across your chest and your back, down through your pelvis into your legs, down through your knees, into your ankles, across your feet and out your toes, feeling the music relaxing and healing every muscle. Feel your breath flowing in, flowing through your body, healing, loosening, relaxing every muscle in your body. I want you to imagine a beautiful light floating with the music. A beautiful, healing ball of light. The light flows gently with the music, a beautiful healing light down through your head and down your neck. Feel your muscles loosen and relax as the light flows down into your face, down into your neck and shoulders. That beautiful light, you're loosening and relaxing every muscle in your body. Feeling your breath flow as your shoulders drop down into your body. And then your shoulders drop into your back, into the chair, loose and relax. Let the light flow down your shoulders, healing every muscle down your shoulders into your arms. Arms. Feeling the muscles loose. Down through your abdomen and your stomach, loosen and relax as the light flows down, filling every muscle. And the muscles feel loose and relaxed, hanging loose off the bones, supporting your body as the light flows down with the music into your pelvis and your hips. Breathing and feeling the music. Light fill your abdomen, down to your pelvis. The light flows into your legs, where the hips and the legs go, and feel that beautiful light. Let the music move deep. Sense of relaxation down into your leg. Muscles release and fall loose, relaxed, heavy into the chair beneath. Feel the thighs and your quads and into your knees. So you feel those muscles loosen and relax. down heavy into the chair or the floor beneath you. Light fills them with a beautiful healing light. Music moving the light down your knees and into your calves and your shins. Feeling your muscles loosen and release, falling heavy into the floor, chair beneath you. Your muscles releasing and feeling loose. As you can feel light loosening and relaxing each muscle across your shins and your calves, down into your ankles. Let the light flow into those muscles. Let them feel loose, heavy, and relaxed. Falling down into the floor and the chair beneath. Let the beautiful light flows with the music down through your heels, across your arches, down across the balls of your feet, up your toes, feeling the muscles fall heavy into the floor, loose and relaxed. One with the floor beneath you. Now just listen to the music flow through your body, loosening and relaxing every muscle, letting your body flow, renew, fill with that beautiful light, renewing every cell in your body. As you relax your mind and just listen to the music until you hear my voice again. As you're feeling the music flowing through your body and your mind, allow yourself to take a deep breath and feel the breath flowing through you, feeling it like a cool breeze flowing into your body, feeling renewed and refreshed, full of good healing oxygen, beautiful energy of music, letting your mind feel awakened and renewed. As you take another deep breath, breathe in with me, feeling more awake and refreshed, breathing in and blowing out. And now start to move your feet and move your hands and feel the music, feeling refreshed and renewed, every cell of your body, refreshed and renewed with good oxygen, healing music, and a deep sense of peace and renewal. Take another last deep breath. Breathe in, feeling more awake, and breathing out. As it brings peace to your breath, feel renewed, refreshed, yet relaxed and ready to go on with this session. Stanley, thank you, my dear friend. Thank you for always sharing your gift of music with me, with us, with the whole world.
Oh,
Such a
thank
blessing.
you so much. It's what
And
such a
everybody out
great
there in our
treat.
live stream and on view, thank you.
Hmm. You know, these kind of sessions where we
What
really
we
hmm just using music in that sort of relaxation, it's actually my favorite way to practice. And I've done a lot of sessions where my purpose was to help people to get relaxed. And for example, I've worked with a lot of massage therapists where I'm playing music and I'm improvising music in real time with the massage and trying to make the music and the massage unified. And that to me, after a few days of that, it's the best thing for my guitar playing. And I've been telling my students that. Because so often as musicians, we pressure ourselves to play something interesting and we kind of clench up, we kind of tense up. But with this kind of stuff, it's just so open and we connect with the music. And then when the time is right to build it up, to make it faster or more complex or whatever, we let the music tell us when the time is right. When and if.
And I think that's one of the things you've given voice to, that's a growing, I mean, growing area, even though music has been used, right, to heal
Hmm.
throughout human history, 40,000 years, right, of human history and evolution. We have developed this deep phenomena of music in our lives and healing traditions. Just so everybody knows, even ancient Egyptian physicians had to be musicians, right? Because you have to have that highly developed sense to recognize rhythm. And when the physicians would listen to the human body, if the heart, the rhythm is in time, that's an indication of a good, healthy heart and other systems. If it's irregular, to be able to pick that up. They didn't have electricity back then. They had to listen. They had to feel the body's pulses. They had to feel and hear the melodic frequencies of a voice, of breathing, and distinguish health based on those musical features, which is the human body, the human instrument, and that power of
It,
music perception. Even me, my mom and I are both have severe hearing losses. Beethoven was deaf, has perception of music, and it's like times. You could read about David soothing Saul with the harp. We in modern times with modern medicine kind of wanted to divide the healing arts from the sciences, but now, as Stanley was talking about, it's broadly growing, and you have access to massage healing, all kinds of trauma and other kind of workshops that do energy and a lot of the integrative arts. And at concerts, there are more and more. Cassie Shank, she is our composer on the Movement Tracks project, and we're biomedical DJing for yoga, for other kind of yoga and other kind of healing practices. Stanley, you do live performances. We're going to hear about maternal health in a few minutes here. Gabrielle Federico is a music therapist, and Gomo Health, who my company is working with Gabrielle for a global concierge program using music to help and heal women and maternal health and increasing babies in the womb, their overall development and health. So there's so many beautiful ways that, Stanley, when you're on tour, you've called me at different times when you have a year of your music therapy degree, but you haven't finished yet. You're intending to finish that, especially with the pandemic and not having to tour so much. You did things where you were using music to help enhance education, achievement, empowerment. I know Gina Chavez, a friend of mine, Sarah Hickman, another friend of mine, when they're on tours, they go out to hospitals. Gina does this incredibly empowering fundraising to fund women in South America, young girls being held back from school to fund their education. Those are powerful things, ways we artists, but often you step outside of that, you go into hospitals. You've done other things with massage, and didn't you do a childbirth and also some hospice work, both personally? I think you have a story there with hospice, is the end of life. Am I correct?
Well, yeah. In fact, when my father passed away a few years back, I was there and I was playing when he transitioned. And, you know, for me, it's like it was pretty much the only way I could cope with the situation. And so, I have to be honest, I did that for me as well, But I also, they say that that our hearing is one of the last things to go. And in fact, when people are in deep anesthesia in surgery, very often there's reports where they'll come back and they'll talk about conversations that they heard in the operating room. And it makes sense because, when you think about it, we don't have, just like we have eyelids, but we don't have, earlids. I mean, our ears are always open. And because our ears are not only always open, but plugged into the startle response to wake us up in case there's a lion or whatever, we're built to activate upon sound. And so I think our hearing is one of the deepest senses. You can assume that people, even when they're in a very deep state and even in a state of transition, can hear you. And so it was a gift and a blessing to be able to offer that for my father. And my new album that's coming out this with if assuming all goes as planned, the album's called Feather in the Wind, and it's dedicated to my dad. And I experienced a lot of loss during the making of that album, and it ended up becoming a theme of the album. A number of people I wanted to work with passed on before I had a chance to work with them, and there's various things that I did to keep going, to keep moving, and that ended up becoming part of the album. So the album is really about the things that we do to maintain constancy in the face of change, death, loss. The album was supposed to come out like 5 years, and the fact that we're finally now hopefully able to get it out this year, I think is sort of cosmic harmony, because the album is supposed to come out because so many people are coping with these very themes. So music is sort of comforting. There's one of the many. I don't want to get too technical, but one of the many sort of compositional devices that I used. You know how when you have a song that's in minor, so minor has a certain sound. Many people will say sad. Other people will say it's sort of. There's different senses of that, how we perceive minor. But then, when the minor goes to major, there's a sort of a feeling of upliftment and sort of an emotional sense of hope and comfort from that, called the Picardy third. So now that you know that, you're going to hear that many times throughout the album. That's one of the techniques that we use to convey that sense of optimism, but not a sort of a false hope like, oh, everything is beautiful. Sometimes we go and the music is there to be with you in that time. So, all of our transitions in life, we normally have music. I've played for tons of weddings and things like that. I learned Hava Nagila. It's so. The other thing is, once when I was working on one of my albums back in the 80s, I took a long journey to search for inspiration, and friend and I drove across country, and we stopped off to visit some folks in New Mexico, and they had a couple visit them, and the woman went into labor. And they had been prepared. Oh, we're going for it. So I played for the birth, and that's part of what I do. I think it's part of the gift that I'm trying to cultivate, is connecting with people where they're at in that moment as they go through life's journey, and sort of finding the notes that really kind of connect with people in that. I also played at a hospice in Nashville, very famous hospice there. I forget the name, but I performed there, and I went around to some. I do a lot of visits to hospitals in certain places, like in Brazil, for example. The Asian who books me there knows that I like to do that kind of stuff. So it might be when I arrive in Brazil, your first stop is to visit some kids in a cancer ward in a hospital. The last time we did that, I looked around and I realized, oh, actually, I've been here before, right? This looks familiar. Oh yeah, you played here before. So it's it's part of spreading the gift.
And it is a true gift. So let's talk about, so that's a lot of, like we said, when any path, music educators, music performers, even touring, how you can do so much impactful things. Now let's talk, I'm going to talk now about when you cross a line over into treatment. When, in the United States, when you actually call it music therapy, that's a federal and recognized on state level, regulated field. So once you go and you're saying, I'm doing music therapy, and you're a music therapist, that means you have to have an undergraduate degree, a master's, or a PhD in music therapy, and you've had to successfully complete a clinical internship, and that's 6 months in an approved clinical site. And then you have to get certification, credential. It's basically your license, continuing educations, and if you lapse in that, it's illegal to practice. When you cross this field and you say now it's treatment, and you say now I'm doing music therapy, that means there is no more freedom of speech. When you're an artist and you're creating music and you're doing music and it's music for music's sake, even though it has all of these powerful impacts, nobody holds you responsible for any impact. Like Stanley, we were at a concert, one of your concerts, and a gentleman had a seizure in the front row. And this was a year at Arizona State, so you knew you just allowed the music. You didn't stop. You didn't keep the flow and allow the audience and everybody to just stay with you while he went through a seizure. EMS took him out. You knew to do that, but nobody was going to sue you or say you were responsible for that seizure or say that anything you were doing was treatment because you're an artist, correct?
Right. And by the way, just want to throw this
artists,
in. I just want to throw this one thing in too. So one of the values of to keep on playing is because if a person loses consciousness or goes into a dramatically altered state, the music can be an anchor to help them to provide a pathway for them to hopefully come back.
Yeah, and it's very continuous, and he was very intentional about not starting, stopping, making no sudden volume changes. Stanley, he's learned enough, he knows enough. If you're going to do that, just be very calm and continuous. All right. So, but when an artist does something for, to raise money, when they speak on a cause, and a lot of musicians will, I just met a gal who's doing music RX where they're musicians, they volunteer, they go and they play, but they're there to be there, and they're there to help and heal. They don't have to document, they don't communicate with the treatment team, anything they learned about the person. There's no connection in the medical team. I have another friend, she's done a lot of, she's an artist, a really global recognized artist, and she talks about when she was playing and it was a psychiatric concert and somebody got aggressive and she left. She got off, she got out of there, she got safe. Well, you do that as long as you're not a music therapist. When you're a music therapist, you're the one who has to make sure that person who's coming at you yelling and screaming going to hurt you. You have to know exactly what to do to keep that person safe. You're not allowed to run. You know how to call in the rest of the treatment team. You know how to de-escalate the situation either with music or the music stops, and use every other skill that you've been trained as a healthcare professional, a mental health expert, to have the best interests of that person at heart, and you are part of that team. That's a big line that you cross at therapy instead of just music. And here in the United States, that's in medical settings, that's in behavioral health, mental health, that's in neurorehabilitation hospitals, that's in schools when we're a related service, just like speech, PT, OT. So in the school setting, if you wanted to be in that setting, you'd be working with school-age kids. You'd be doing a lot to support educational needs and focus and attention and learning and emotional regulation. If you're in a rehab hospital, you're going to be, my dear friend Mia Morrow, you might have seen on the news, Gabby Gifford got shot in the head, took a shot right through her brain. And Mia was her music therapist. Mia was my intern at the center and trained her in neurologic music therapy. I'm so proud and grateful for me as a student to learn, do her internship. She took that job and she was there to help Gabby Gifford not only learn to speak again through music, but to actually walk and get her motor system. And that was more hardcore science, where you're learning direct methodology where there is no freedom of speech. Melodic intonation, adaptive melodic, auditory stimulation protocol. These are science-driven, best practice medical procedures with music that are applied in a very specific methodology, that are research and followed methodology for science to ensure the safety and the continuous outcomes that they are going to get better doing these things. You write it in a treatment program, and guess what? You have liability insurance because federal and state law, you're licensed to practice, you have to know what you're doing, and if you do it wrong, just like doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, everybody else, you're in trouble. There is no freedom of speech. You hold the responsibility of best clinical practice and knowing what those procedures are, how to do music. In behavioral health, there's people's minds and cognition are really distorted, and the wanting to harm themselves, and music goes deep. And you have to know how to work with that. And you cannot do a performance and leave because you're an artist. You stay. You stay through that. And you learn to get better. And you're always as part of a team, right? So I want to talk a little bit about some things that Stanley brought up. So helping a normal pregnancy, right? And childbirth. My friend Gabrielle Frederico is on this call, and I am going to share my screen. He's one of the leaders in working with music and pregnancy and child development in the world. He's in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He's also on the Center for Music Therapy staff, and we're thrilled to have him. He makes a clear distinction between a healthy, normal pregnancy and when we're using music. Anybody can use it to develop, to have a better, fuller pregnancy and a healthier child and the bonding that happens. But then you have conditions that are more serious, higher risk pregnancies. You may have a category of teenage pregnancies, and the bonding with babies is very hard as a teenager. The fears, the anxiety, building communities to help you raise that child often alone. I'm going to show a video of how Gabrielle has worked with this group of teenage moms, has them doing music. They're touching their bellies together. They're doing a movement and singing exercise. You'll see Gabrielle at the end, but I just want you to listen and watch and think about how the babies are experiencing. They can hear everything that the moms are singing, the music around them. They can feel, the mothers are feeling tummy to tummy, feeling each other, not alone, the bonds with their babies, and building the bonds of community together, which takes a music therapist to guide them through that pregnancy, through the birth, and through actually a lot of child. So let me share my screen, and we are going to watch. I'm very grateful, Gabrielle, for you sharing this. Oops, hang on a second. I'm going to have to go back and see what happened to that link. There we go.
And
All right, thank you everybody. And if you will all be watching your chat and your video, the workshop we're going to be doing and getting very down into these things, we'll share the link for that so you can start to sign up. For some reason it is not wanting.
it's starting to come up. Here we go.
Can you see it now?
It's coming up. Yes, it's up.
Stanley,
I see
can you
it.
see it?
Yes.
All right.
And you're sharing
Let me hope
computer
the
sound
audio
too,
comes
right?
through. All right.
Yeah.
Que abran los ojos y que se miren, que miren a esa mamá. Está al lado de ustedes. Está compartiendo este momento tan especial de la vida.
So there are many things that Gabrielle does, and as pregnancies have more and more risk factor and they go up to more increased, therapists, nurses, and doctors are working much more in the hospitals or in the treatment versus pregnancies that aren't high risk and they're very normal.
Can I tell you real quick? I just want to tell real
Sure.
quick one experience that I had. This was at Beth Israel Hospital in New York, and I was working with a couple of music therapists there, and there was a baby there who, okay, on the crib, this baby did, I think she was maybe like 2 weeks old. On the crib, there was a last name, then it was crossed out, and another last name was put there. So clearly there's some issues going on many different levels. And she was constantly uncomfortable and just sort of writhing in pain and discomfort. And so the nurse was holding the baby, and then the three of us got in really close and all surrounded the baby. And I played something really simple on guitar. It was something like this. Just real super simple. And then we sang together like, something like that, you know. And suddenly this little girl was like this. She was like, just looking at us like, wow, I don't know what's going on here, but this is really cool. And obviously all the attention was on her, and we were giving her so much support and so much love, and she was hearing the music and enjoying the music. So just being able to create that one moment. And the nurse told us later that for about 20 she was fine. And then the discomfort started up again, but clearly the endorphins and things in the body, the pleasure chemicals, get generated from music. And that was a really important moment in her life. To be able to give her that was a great blessing.
And that's why these kind of collaborations, if you decide to be a music therapist, you also are collaborating with artists and musicians, and you want them. You want people, helping doing singing and drumming and exercise. When it comes to childbirth, like Gabrielle has a book, we're also collaborating with Gomo Health on, they already have a concierge program, an app, that it's not music therapy, but we music therapists are helping design simple things like that, educating them, simple things they can do, hum to your baby, sing to your baby, put a glass of water on your tummy, right? And see the baby's vibrations, and then put balloons against your belly and sing into it, and get to experience what the baby's feeling like in there, these kind of things. But then as you need a music therapist going into music therapy, again, things get more complex. One of the leading music therapists here in the United States doing music therapy assisted childbirth is Jane Stanley, and has done a lot of studies with babies in pain, low birth weight babies. She even developed technology. It's a pacifier, a suckling, a PAL that when the baby latches down, that's been born so premature it can't even suckle, it latches down and it plays a recording of the mother's voice singing her music. And those babies get out of the hospital on average 2 weeks earlier. They put on weight. So these are the kind of science and technology. We are so hardwired for music continuum of care to work. And we need people to go into music therapy that really want to work and work as healthcare professionals and mental health professionals and educationalists. And that it's going to be very difficult to hold a tour and do that. That's some of the choices that, get conflicted. But when you're touring, you can collaborate, right? And use music so naturally to heal. So one of the other use cases is I want to go into, again, we're doing more and more and trying the power and the knowledge and cueing people to use music more intentionally. But in music therapy, I want to show you a neuro rehab patient. So when I talk about, I have a company called the Center for Music Therapy. It's 31 years old. Out of that, I incubated a company called a software company called Biomedical Music Solutions. We have our product, which is a product that can precisely increase the volume of activation in the area of the motor cortex that controls walking and balance. And we've gotten so good at that we can change people's walking like that without causing a fall and without unintended consequences. We haven't talked about that, Stanley. Unintended negative consequences. Everybody loves to talk about the power of music, and it's like it's only a one-way street. It only does good. Well, guess what? Especially when you get into music therapy, it can do a lot of harm. When you see people as a music therapist, they're not just in your normal well. They're having either psychotic episodes, they've had severe trauma, they may have even had a leg blown off or an arm, and you have a head injury, they have a disease process, they have Alzheimer's, dementia, they can't speak very well. So let's just give an example of something called autobiographical memory. For those of you interested in working with older adults in Alzheimer's and cognitive, a lot of people watch Alive Inside and they favorite song and they just remember who they are and they come alive, and that's wonderful. And you're right, that's incredibly powerful. But good assessment makes sure that goes right, because if you don't know that person and you don't have trained healthcare professionals watching, trauma that's associated with war trauma, like in the VA hospitals, and even sexual violence trauma. And we have this in a lot of recovery cases within the church. You have worship songs that people don't talk about, but you have these older folks that they're hearing worship songs and they might have that same smile on their face, but they're anxious, they're rocking, they get up and they wander. And everybody just keeps singing the song and nobody's stopping to think. Sometimes the music has been autobiographically paired with a trauma. My husband's in the Army. There's a lot of folks that go and they drive into an IED. Only one or two of them in that vehicle survive and they've lost something. They end up in a trauma center, neuro rehab. The last thing you want to do is pull up their playlist and play one of their favorite songs, because chances are, you guys don't know this, but everybody's always got music in their pocket and they're usually listening to their playlist while they're driving along. So if they hear that, they can't speak, they're in neuro rehab and they're trying to learn to walk, it's a big mistake to just pull up a playlist of their favorite song, sync it up to beats per minute, steps per minute, and have them walking, because you may be causing an incredible survivor's guilt trigger. You may be causing an incredible re-traumatization where that memory got paired with that music. So these are the kind of things that are a big distinction in music therapy. I'm going to show you a video where we have in our software, they never hear music that's paired with an autobiographical memory. It doesn't even have lyrics, no words, and it's mainly activating very specifically the motor cortex, and it's meant to increase volume of activation so they can walk faster, accelerate their gains sooner to walk better than ever before. So let me show you what that looks like in the pandemic, right? What is music therapists doing? I'm going to share this video of Sid, and if Sid is out there live streaming, Sid and Judy, thank you for letting me share your story and your video with all of these folks to see how quickly with correct methodology, science research, and good technology and best clinical practice with music therapists and physical therapists, how quickly and dramatically somebody can change their walking.
Stay way over to the side. Yeah.
He worked so hard. I don't know if you could hear the music, but again, no lyrics. It's not music that was designed for another purpose like we do in the music industry. We create music and then it goes out as a product and it's broadly, consumed and paired with our lives. That's why music therapists tend to compose music on the spot and are actually creating music. And Alzheimer's, we may do some sing-alongs and things, and older adults, but a lot of times you actually learn how to improvise. You do drum swing to intentionally stay away from autobiographical memory triggers when you want to do something else with the brain. So Sid, that was a great example of, that was the only reason that I could get those kind of clinical outcomes working with Sid, even though I never met him. That whole video, I never met him outside of a phone call and through FaceTime and Zoom. But one of the problems you can see with music in the digital age, if we try to do treatment on Zoom, you can see all the problems with the distortion and what's called latency. It doesn't work. So I've known that for a long time with scaling music therapy. And so it's with the biomedical devices in the clinics and the hospitals. We're in 115 hospitals across the globe and growing. We have over 500,000 users using our biomedical music. And that's what Sid was using. And it constantly increases the volume activation only in the part of the brain we want. We're not being sloppy and just lighting up the brain like a Christmas tree and going for whatever kind of really cool consequences, cool or not so cool. We know exactly what we're doing and exactly what we want to do, and then the best clinical practice. So that's just a little sampling to help the discussion of music as therapy. And platforms are emerging, like treatment. We're working with Live Music Tutor, partnering to do more music therapy on a platform that's designed more to support, so you don't run into the latency and a lot of the issues like we've experienced tonight, even on this live stream. So more and more technologies are being developed for precision medicine, to reach a new era of music creation and design, not for commercial use in a media sense, but very precisely for walking and balance with people who have disease processes, to specifically target cognitive executive function versus autobiographical memory or other kind of focus features and attention, that we're getting so precise that music will only be designed in this area more and more and delivered through technologies that are really tied into the whole health information technology, biofeedback, where we can see exactly what's happening and safeguard negative consequences.
One thing I want to mention
that is created as a media product by the music industry.
And Hope, one thing I want to mention briefly is I once played for a surgery for a patient who was getting a operation for a fibroid tumor. It was a laparoscopic myomectomy. And what I did was I asked the patient some questions first regarding musical preferences and not, the music that the patient didn't like. And in particular, I was looking for what I call musical allergy to certain music. And I was glad I asked, because I found out, for example, that this patient was allergic to Peter and the Wolf, because when she was very young, she heard this story and was, when the wolf ate the duck or something, there was just some moment when that really scared her. So I knew not to play that particular song. And I said, let's go over some of the music that I'll be playing while you're going to sleep for the surgery. So just to highlight your point, it is important to realize that it can also cause harm, and we want to make sure that we do no harm.
That's absolutely correct. And that's what, as music therapists, always are doing assessment and reassessment and evaluation to find those things out again to offset unintended negative consequences. And that's why you need that kind of undergraduate, master's, PhD. When you start doing trauma work, if you're doing deep guided imagery with music, the Helen Bonny method, you have to be an advanced psychotherapist training. If you want to do neuro rehab, you've got to do a lot more, stepping up like a speech therapist, speech OTs. If you're in the school setting, you have to do child development, educational, nursing homes, in geriatric, becoming an elder specialist of Alzheimer's, oncology, pain management. I know that we developed music in the 1990s. I still won't release out on the market. It was developed for burn acid wash treatments. So the patient got to use it really effectively, all of the patients, acid wash baths for their burn grafting. But we threw that music away. I never let them listen to it. Once they got through that treatment, they never heard it again. It's nothing that would ever come up on the radio because they survived the acid wash bath, but you want to literally make sure they never ever hear that music again, because their bodies would recognize. That happens in cancer treatment with music and music therapy. Music therapists are very careful. Again, they play a lot of original music, do things live in a personal relationship, because you can overly pair a song that you love before you went through cancer treatments with then nausea and a lot of the things. So we're very careful in how we guide folks towards taking songs that they previously have loved, what they're going to pair it with and intentionally use. So yeah, music allergies, a lot of assessment, a lot of process. So there's a lot more to say. We have a lot of partners, Biodex Medical Systems, who we are already, again, we have 500,000 users and growing. Rovers, we're partnering with Live Music Tutor and their platform to deliver music therapy and to help serve the VA system and others. VA has been the longest employer of music therapists and is the largest single employer of music therapists in the United States, and they still don't have enough music. All these different states, and there's not even a music therapist for them in every state. So we need more music therapists, but they need musicians, artists to collaborate, and better built platforms to be able to do musical activities and experiences live to help them. We have Maternal Health GOMO working with them, and they've launched something called GOMO Music. We are just really busting a move. We're even doing Limelight Productions in Glasgow, Scotland, with Edinburgh University, where we're doing rock and roll music therapy and community music making. And I've been a part of a project called Flattening the Curve with the Glasgow Improvisation Orchestra, where it's community music making. And it's been my survival through this pandemic, where we improvise, do free improvisation with musicians in every country in the world, all of us experiencing lockdown. And we've created this body of works through the pandemic for the last year. So there's just a whole range of music as therapy out there. And Stanley, I really want to encourage you guys to sign up for the workshop. JT is going to share those links. We have 2-hour group workshops that are going to be, again, you'll see the dates on our website. JJ is going to show that link, and follow us on Facebook. Go to the centerformusictherapy.com to check it out. We're doing 3 modules. One is who are you? And getting to know yourself and understanding more music as therapy. The next one is what do you want, and a more professional roadmap to how to achieve what do you want out of your life and how to get there. And the last one is sustaining your career, and that's digging into the finances and really making a plan, because a lot of people take on $100,000 in debt, and you better be able to pay that back and make money back on that. So maybe you don't need to be a music therapist, right? Stanley's done a very successful career. A lot of people are doing successful careers to help and heal through music. Maybe you don't need that degree if that's not where you intend to be. I always say something in the workshop: if you have and can handle a close personal relationship with bodily fluids, that's a good indicator that you're going to be happy as a music therapist. Because universal precautions pandemic, we do that. So without further ado, we're going to open up for questions, and Jay has been facilitating questions and from the comments coming from the live stream, and as well as all of you in the room, in the Zoom room, that are special guests tonight. So JJ, if you would go ahead and let us know some of the questions coming in. So I see one of the questions, so about the workshop. Yes, as a group and also one-on-one. So on the first workshop's date is April 20th, 6:30 to 8:30. It's called Who Are You? And we'll be doing group exercises where you'll be doing experiencing a lot of music therapy interventions. We're going to be teaching you improvisation. We're going to do more into the guided imagery. We have a lot of things we're going to be doing about movement and other things, but deeply using the arts to music as therapy and music. So asking you to guide and journal and do insightful things to discover more about who you are. After that group session, and the platform will not be Zoom, it's going to be on Live Music Tutors platform, so we won't have as many problems with latency and the disruptions that we experience on Zoom. After that, we will be setting up times to be discussed. Part of knowing who you are, we're going to find out about what you're interested in. If you're interested in more geriatrics and older adults, the person who's more interested in working with kids maybe in school settings or with developmental delays, you're going to be observing and set up times with us to observe music therapists working in those populations. So we'll be doing those virtually in April. We don't expect to be doing those in person. We're also going to be doing panels. So you're going to actually get to do interviews and panels with music therapists. Ask them about their day, find out a lot more, dive in deeper about what they do and choices they make. We're going to also have other related fields panelists, people who are leaders in working in other related fields, integral arts, music together programs, engineers in the music industry, composers, lots of other professionals. You're also going to get 30 minutes of mentoring with me per each module that you sign up for, and we will set that up with your time and mine, time that works, along with more group experientials, and then we're going to have cohort discussions. The folks that you're in the workshop, the module, those cohorts continue after the workshop is over, and we set it up so you can support each other and your dreams and your discussion, and have a support group to help you successfly continue on your journey and live your best life with your best career. So those are some of the answers. Stanley, Jackie, JJ, I see, how do you see bridging the disconnect between musicians, music therapists, and scientists? Stanley, do you want me to take that one first? All right. I see bridging the disconnect as really building and understanding more of that continuum, making clear definitions between understanding music as therapy is a big umbrella, but being clear in our language and discussion about when musicians are doing concerts and the power of those concerts, but it is not therapy. And that's very powerful, but making clear definition between those who then do what Stanley, he's taken lots of, outside of the music therapy course we're taking, Stanley's done a lot of other, there's so many things. He's taken workshops, right? So when you're doing that, you have a credential and accountability to stay within your scope of practice to heal. And then natural things with church and spiritual practice. And in hospice, you will see chaplains working, you see music therapists, you see musicians coming in and doing performances, but we all understand our roles, and we have a respect for boundaries and understanding that you hold responsibility for not going beyond the level in which you know you are to perform. versus practice music therapy. You would not do a concert saying you're a music therapist in a facility and then run off a stage and leave a patient. If you are a music therapist, you're the point and responsible for that patient's safety. You know that, and you're willing to take that responsibility. A patient has a seizure. If Stanley was a music therapist, he would be. If there's nobody there attending, he's responsible with that degree and that training. He has to have first aid. He has to be able to administrate. He has to know that he's the one that's supposed to be down there, right? And oftentimes that means the music has to stop. So those are some of the distinctions and ownership of responsibility, getting yourself educated. Music therapists are a part of that. Advocacy and education are allies, and like Stanley has been an ambassador for music, been really clear on those boundaries, supporting education and training, joining our team, getting his degree. Scientists actually are all over this. They love music therapy. They love the decade of the brain in the 1990 to 2000. When they got those cool toys called PET scans and MRIs, they got so excited. They were geeks, having people play music like Stanley and then putting these nodes and sensors on their brain and watching Stanley's brain on music and watching how music in the brain, it lights up like a Christmas tree. And so they really get into music. But one of the things that they're very clear on, like Biomedical Music Solutions, is a software that only integrates with FDA-approved medical devices that are already in clinics and hospitals. And it has stood up, it was designed and developed with best practice research. So the whole technology, I'm the patent author and the head of product development on that product. Everything that we did was done with good scientific methodology, with what's called IRB-approved studies with physical therapists, PhDs, doctors in clinics with patients using FDA technology, Xenomat, gate, motion capture equipment. So everything was high-level, clinical-grade sensors, data to inform the development of each audio stem that we use to activate the brain. Matter of fact, when we released it, we didn't release it just to commercial use. We released it into already it's called strategy, and it is appropriate ethics in the culture. Medical devices and medical practice takes longer to get to market because you have to follow rigorous scientific evidence, and you have to unintended consequences and to address those. So you're not allowed to just put something out there and it say it helps somebody and it doesn't. It causes the exact opposite or is benign. Music is not benign. I think you've gotten that. So when we put ours out to market, we only put it at beta sites, and we let top scientists in the world independently use it. That were their MDs, neurologists, PTs at the top research institutes in the world. They used it, they tested it, and then that was completely done independent of us. And then they published the studies. And I didn't know if those studies were going to come out. I would assume, since our best at it was consistently helping people walk, like Sid, better and faster, safely, and preventing falls. When we put it out to those sites, they tested that. And guess what? It's been published in over like 8 top medical journals. 3 last year. The International Journal of Neuroscience. One of the institutes published our product, using our product with Parkinson's patients, and it was better gains than ever previously achieved, faster, with no negative impact and no falls. We improved balance and cognition and walking. Then another study came out in Frontiers of Neurology that they used our product, showed the same kind of results, faster, better walking, balance, and because in this one, they had done this advanced EEG, so you got to see the brain. We did it. It actually, you could see the volume of brain activation increase with our music versus the other audio cues, and that explains why it's happening so immediately, fast, accurately. No negative, no falls. And that's why the other thing with music therapy, with music in education and music performance, a lot of the effects we talk about last for, like you said, immediately or 20 minutes, Stanley. With music, you have to last. So when you do a protocol with like Sid, when you stop the music, the brain has to reset, and he has to be able to walk without music just as well, and that stays. So like there's a patient I talked to just a couple weeks ago that did our music therapy and used our product on the Biodex treadmill. He had been falling before that. He couldn't swing his arms. I just checked in with him and he said, nope, he improved. He doesn't use the music anymore. He hasn't fallen in a year. He walks, he runs on the treadmill. So that's the kind of results you have to achieve in music therapy. It can't just, everybody knows that music makes you move, right? Everybody wants to dance, but those go away oftentimes. And Alzheimer's, the same thing. You turn on a favorite song, memory comes back, they fade away. Music therapy has to go beyond that. You have to have lasting effects on a baby. Those lasting developmental effects. There's a higher level of integrity, degree, and therefore the science and the research is absolutely essential, and the accountability. Does that answer that question? Is any other questions? And yes, we do accept volunteers. You can go to our website and go under, JJ, what's the tab they go under? Careers, right? And download the volunteer application and submit that to us, and you can go through a process to interview. Not everybody's accepted, but definitely a process for acceptance for interviewing. JJ, or anybody have some more questions for us? Stanley, we're 4 minutes till we wrap. What are you want to do about 2 minutes closing comments, then and can you let everybody know again about your CD that's going to be released soon?
Yeah, so the CD's called Feather in the Wind, and we'll let you know. I'll definitely make sure to announce when it's available. Months yet, but I'm definitely looking to release it this year. And I have to say that I've made, it's my favorite to listen to, and I can't wait to share it. The very opening music at the beginning of this session was one of the songs from the album. It's called Flight of the Eagle. And so there you go. I'm just really looking forward to getting this out there. And I know that a lot of people who've been staying in touch with me through the years are aware of my involvement with the healing side of music therapy, etc. And so, it's common knowledge, but I think it's especially good that we had a chance to do this session today, because not everyone is aware of just how deep this is and all the different aspects that are encompassed by it. So I think it is that I'm so interested in this in particular, and why it's something that we're encouraging people, if you have any sort of calling in the healing arts connected to music, it's a wonderful thing. It's an opportunity. And so if people come to one of our workshops coming up, we're going to have a chance to go into that in a little bit more. You don't have to be, like you were saying, you don't have to become a music therapist per se, but even if you're a recording artist, a touring artist, a songwriter, just the sort of conventional aspects of the music, a lot of areas where you can take what you learn from music therapy and apply that, and you really make sure that you're actually using your music to help people. So it's a calling. If you got that calling, we want to help you to find ways of answering that call.
I say amen to that, Stanley, because the only way we can scale, the music industry knows how to scale. There is music in everybody's pocket all around the world. The music industry has led, think about the 1960s and 70s, the most beautiful music led a whole generation to transform our country. Rightful music, to peace. And we just had this potential. And I know with music and music-related technologies and therapy, it's only through our partnerships around music with the Recording Academy, with the engineers, with the composers. We have Stephen Bartlett Productions. Stephen Bartlett is one of the best engineers in the world. so in depth with us, emerging technologies, Reef Burt Neve. We have Sean Bailey. He's one of the best winds players ever. He should get a Grammy just for the recordings we did for our biomedical music that's out there. No artist has ever had to achieve and do what he did to make these recordings do what they've done for people. Cassie Shankman is one of the most experienced new generation of composers, not only in film scoring, but in biomedical music. There are just so many new emerging chances, but you guys, we are so under workforce and in helping and healing. We need more musicians. We need more educators. And the thing that draws us together is that love for music and the power that it's peaked about entertainment anymore. And I'm not saying entertainment as in that's a lower thing. I'm saying there's a whole bigger new era that we can achieve in human possibilities and capacity that we've left untapped, right? The greatest thing about music wasn't in the past. The greatest thing about music is ahead of us. There's a whole new era there because of technology's abilities and things we haven't even thought of yet when we really bring it into treatment, healing, and empowering humanity beyond what we've done in the past. So Stanley and I welcome you to join that discussion. Join this team. Join the workshops. You sign up, you pay at the time that when you actually register, just go to the centerformusictherapy.com's website, and you will be having much more in-depth discussions, and again on a different platform which is more stable for this. And we are so grateful to everybody. Stanley, thank you. Thank you for who you are. You're an incredible gift to all of us on this planet, as a friend and as a colleague, but musician to musician. You've always been healing the planet and sharing your gift, and we're all so profoundly grateful.
Thank you so much, and know that I mention you a lot, and it's great for so many of those people now to actually see you and get to know you and let you tell your own story. And so now, folks, you know what I'm talking about now. So it's just really the opening of something really, really wonderful. I'm so glad. You know, they say life gives you lemons and you make lemonade, and I think that one of the sweetness of the lemonade that came from this whole disastrous year is some of the changes that some of us have been able to make. I know we're all struggling in different ways, but this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's finally materializing, so I'm excited about it.
And we are too. And so many of our colleagues, Dr. Raymond McDonald in Scotland and Limelight Productions, and you, all of us, we're virtual around this path together. I want to do a shout out of thanks. One to my husband, Kenton Bass, who helped me with a lot of technical follies today. But behind the scenes, you guys, everybody give a shout out to JJ Jenkins. She has been our production assistant on this, doing the marketing. JJ, you have been invaluable. We love you, and we are very grateful for you. JJ is a psychology major at University of Texas and going into her master's, and she has interned at the Center for Music Therapy, but now is paid staff as community builder. So shout out to JJ and all of you for being here tonight. Gabrielle, thank you for letting me share your video, and thank you for all the work you're doing with Gomo Health and many of our other partners. You guys, be well, stay well, cling to the music, make more music in your life, and let's all join together in bringing this vision for our world and ourselves into our future. Good night, everybody. Take us away.
Thank you, everyone.